The MMT-8 is a full-function MIDI multi-track recorder. And what that means is it's able to record any information you can send it over MIDI. So since MIDI is actually transmitting the information that is occurring from a keyboard, in other words, what note is being played or a pitch bend wheel is being moved, you can use this information and manipulate it at any time afterwards. You're not actually recording the audio of what's coming out of your synthesizers, just the events that occurred. The MMT-8, like the HR-16, has 100 parts and 100 songs. And these 100 parts are as if you had 100 different reels of tape to work with on your multi-track tape recorder. They can have different musical ideas, different sections of songs, anything you like. And it's just as easy to use as a tape recorder. We have 8 tracks in each part, and each of these tracks can contain information from all 16 MIDI channels or just one MIDI channel, anything you like. And they can independently be turned on or off with the track select buttons on the front panel. And let's show how easy it is to record on the MMT-8. First off, we'll select a record track. That's done by just holding the record button down, and then we can select any track just by pushing the button. Any of the tracks that are flashing, it's telling us that that track is empty, meaning there's nothing on it, so we know we don't have to worry about erasing a track that already had something on it. If it was not flashing, we'd know something was on it.
In other words, the light wouldn't turn on at all.
Exactly.
And if the light is solid, that means that
that's
track is
the one
ready
that's selected
to record onto.
That's correct.
Okay.
We can still select a track that might already have something on it in case we wanted to punch in or overdub something onto it.
And in which case, the light would be solid.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's basically how we go ahead and select a track. But we're going to utilize another feature of the MMT-8, which allows us to let the MMT-8 select the track for us. Basically, it automatically will choose the lowest empty track when you select a part. And as we record information in, it's automatically going to select the next empty track as we go.
Oh, really?
This is really useful, so you don't have to keep worrying about what track you're selecting. As you're going through the creative process, you can just keep going and let it go on to the next track.
As long as you liked what you played on each track.
Exactly.
Okay.
Basically, how we have the MIDI set up in this situation right here is we have a MIDI keyboard with a MIDI output connected to the MIDI in of the MMT-8 so that it can record any MIDI information that occurs. The MIDI out of the MMT-8 goes to the HR-16 so that it can follow the MIDI clock and synchronize automatically. And then the MIDI out of the HR-16 with echo turned on is going back to the synthesizer as well as some rack mount synthesizer devices to play some additional sounds.
Into this synthesizer and back through it to the other synthesizers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now this synthesizer is set up so that it's set up with what's called local off, which means its keyboard does not control the synthesizer. Its keyboard just goes out MIDI to the sequencer. And the only thing that can control the synthesizer is what's coming back in through MIDI.
From the sequencer.
So if the sequencer isn't doing anything, then we won't hear anything. Like right now, we won't hear anything when we play on the keyboard. The next function we want to enable is the MIDI echo function of the MMT-8. When the MIDI echo function is on, whatever comes in the MMT-8 will go back out the MMT-8 to the synthesizers.
And the LED has to be on to read it. Okay.
Right, that tells us that it's on. Now, not only will it just pass what comes in back out, it will send the information out on the specific MIDI channel of the track you've selected. So we happen to have some piano Rhodes type sounds on MIDI channel 2. So I'm going to select, by pressing the MIDI channel button, I'm going to select the MIDI channel of track 1 to be on channel 2. Now with MIDI echo on, we can hear we have this, we're controlling this piano sound from the keyboard.
And those are other sound modules that we have set up that are set on MIDI channel 2.
Exactly. If MIDI echo is off, we don't hear anything anymore.
Okay.
If I change the MIDI channel of track 1 to channel 1, we hear a bass sound from another synth module.
Which is set to MIDI channel 1.
Exactly.
Oh, great.
And on MIDI channel 3, we have a horn sound. Which is on MIDI channel 3. So we have 3 musical elements we're going to work with. So we'll start by assigning track 1 to MIDI channel 2, which is our piano sound, and we'll record a part. To record, if record is already on, we just hit play, or we can hold record and hit play like on a tape recorder. And it's automatically going to give us 4 beats of countdown before we start playing. The user can adjust this countdown if you want to any value.
And the drum machine's going to play along with it with that pattern that we
Right. The drum machine has MIDI and internal clock mode set, so it's automatically going to respond to MIDI clock when it occurs from the MMT-8. So let's record a part. Okay, there was simple 8 beats that I just played. Now I didn't hit stop at the end of it, so let's go ahead and set the length using the length function. This is very similar to the HR-16.
Which is right now 9 beats because you took an extra beat in order to turn it off. Okay.
The length of an empty part is a maximum of 682 beats. And when you record the first track that you record into an empty part, wherever you hit stop, that determines the length. But you're not stuck with that length. We can change it at any time. Or we could have even set it up before we recorded. But we didn't in this case, so let's just change the length to 8 beats by holding length and showing 8 in the display and hitting record. Now we'll hear that this part is 8 beats long, and then it just stops. Well, we can, like on the drum machine, we can have the part loop by turning on the loop function, and its LED will light up to show that that's on.
Loop meaning it's going to play over and over again.
Exactly. So now when we get to the end, loop. Now, as you can see, I didn't play that very well. So now we can show another function, which is quantize.
You mean you didn't like your timing?
Right. I did that on purpose.
Okay.
But now that's so we can show how this quantize function works. Quantize is similar to quantize on the drum machine, except that now we're quantizing something after we record it.
Okay.
So what these 4 quantize mode choices give you is the ability to change just the start of a note, which means we're going to move the beginning of where I played a note to the nearest 8th note and leave the release alone. The next one with the page up is note start and end. Now both the start and end independently are going to move to the nearest 8th note. We can quantize just the ending, which would be a real subtle musical change, but it's sometimes useful to even up notes because the note start won't move, just the end. And then the final choice is to keep duration. This means move the note start to the nearest 8th note, but move the note end the same amount so that proportionately note length stays the same. So for this particular application, let's set quantize to 16th notes and let's keep the duration and hit record. So now we have this part quantized, so it's going to play right in time with the drum. So now let's continue on. Let's record another track. The MMT-8, if I hold record, we can see track 2 is now selected for record. It did that automatically because it has this automatic track select function. It knew we finished recording something on track 1, so it automatically selected track 2, so we don't have to worry about it. Now we can, on track 2, select MIDI channel 1, because that's the MIDI channel we've got our bass on.
Okay. And you can hear it as long as it's in record mode.
Right, and MIDI echo is on.
Which is record ready mode.
Right, exactly. So now we can play, we'll get our count off, we'll add a bass part. Now this time we had loop on already, so it just immediately went into play after I was done recording and looped, so we can hear the bass part back. Now we can quantize that bass note, that bass part as well. Quantize track 2, record. Now these 2 parts are locked.
And you can actually turn tracks on and off, if I'm not mistaken, like that. Just listen to the bass part.
We can listen to just the bass, we can listen to just the keyboard part.
Let's listen to this. So you can check it and then go back and listen to the whole thing.
Exactly.
Like having a little mixer on board.
Right, it's like these are really like track mutes, so you can turn them off and on as you go. So now let's add another track. We're going to set the MIDI channel of track 3 to MIDI channel 3. So, and as we can see, track 3 is still selected as the record track. And now we can hit play and put in a horn part. Now we have 3 tracks playing at once. We can hear the horns on track 3, bass on track 2, and the keyboard part on track 1. Now let's quantize track 3, like we did the others.
Nice.
Now let's do something else, show you another useful feature. We'd set up the MIDI channels originally when we first started for each track. We can actually change MIDI channels while it's playing. I've muted tracks 1 and 3, and we're listening to the bass part on track 2. We can now select the MIDI channel track 2 to be the piano part if we want, or the horns by changing the MIDI channel while it's playing.
In other words, you're sending to a different MIDI sound module.
Exactly.
By assigning changing the MIDI channel, it redirects it to the different sound module.
Exactly. We set it back to MIDI channel 1 to get back to the bass sound. This is a real useful way of just auditioning different synths with different sounds for different musical parts. Exactly. And that's our basic part. Now, from here, the next thing we might want to do is, let's say in a song we're going to create, we want this pattern that we just created. It's going to happen again later in a different key, for example. So let's use the copy function. This works very similar to the copy on the HR-16. We hold copy, and it displays as copy from part 0 to part 0. Like on the HR-16, if we copied it, hit record right now, we would double the length of this part,
so
make it twice as long.
It would go from 8 to 16 beats.
Exactly. So we hold down copy, and we select part 1. Now I'm going to copy part 0 to part 1. We hit record, and now part 1 has the identical part as part 0. Now, we wanted to transpose this. Normally you'd have to play the whole thing again in a different key. Let's use the transpose function and transpose up 2 semitones. I'm holding transpose and I selected up 2 semitones. If we wanted to transpose down, we could just use the page buttons to select transpose down instead of transpose up. And we can now select which tracks we wanted to transpose. Normally it selects all of them, but if we wanted to just transpose specific tracks, we could select them individually. Then we press record, and now this part's transposed up a whole step. Instant key transposition. Right, now we're changing parts while it's playing to go back to part 0.
Great. What about a time saver?
Definitely. Now you just transpose all these parts without having to replay anything. So now, in the process of our song that we're creating here, let's go ahead and make a brand new part. And we're going to do this a little differently than what we just did. Let's copy part 0 to part 2 now. Now once again, part 2 has the exact same thing as part 1. But we don't really want that music, so we're going to use the erase function to erase the part. We're going to hold erase and hit record. And then we're going to set the length to 8 beats. Now, what I just did kept the MIDI channel assignment that I had in my original part 0. This way I didn't have to reset up the MIDI channel assignment because I know I'm going to keep them the exact same way.
Okay.
So now we can go ahead and record, and I can record a keyboard part for this B section that's going to be 8 bars long.
So let me get this straight. In other words, when you did the copy, not only did it copy all the musical events, the note on and off and all that, but it actually copied the MIDI channel assignments on each track.
Exactly.
So with a couple of button pushes, you were able to save
the MIDI assignment and just erase the music.
Great, great.
So now let's play a B section to this. Again, it's looping with 8 beats.
Okay.
Now let's put a bass part on top of that. Again, it automatically selected track 2. Now we have the bass part. Both of those were a little sloppy, so we can hold quantize, hit record, quantize both tracks at the same time that time. can go back to part 0. Here what we had. Now we've got 3 different parts that we've created in the MMT-8, and we can have up to 100 parts like this that can be sections of songs or in completely different songs. So the next step in creating this song that we're going to want to do is go into song mode, because now we can connect these parts together in any order in a list, just like we did in the HR-16.
A quick question, though. The length of each part could actually have been much longer than what you played.
Absolutely. It can be up to 682 beats, which is quite a long time. So you could actually put an entire song into one part if you wanted to.
Okay, great.
But musically, it's very useful to be able to split things up like this, because now if you have a verse that occurs many times, instead of having to play it many times, you can just play it once, which is what we're going to do here.
And build an orchestration that way.
Exactly. We go into song mode by pressing song, and we select a song by hitting on the keypad whatever song number we want. We'll work with song 0. I'm going to erase what's in song 0 right now by holding erase and hitting record. Now we can see in the display song 0 is an empty song. So now we're going to create our song. We press edit to edit the song. The edit light comes on and the song light is on, showing we're in song edit. And the display even says edit song 0. So it's telling us everything as we go along.
So it's not really just editing the song, it's actually writing the song.
Exactly.
Okay.
In a sense, what we're doing is editing a blank song right now. So
okay.
We're creating it. And like in the HR-16, we have steps and parts. We are in step 0. Part is nothing, because there isn't anything yet. So we want it to play part 0. Then I'll use the fast forward button to go to the next step. And we're going to have it play part 0 again. We'll go forward again. We're going to have it play part 0 again.
Okay.
We're 3 times so far. Then we're going to play part 2, the B section we did.
That was a transposed part.
No, that was the part in A flat that I put in the third part.
Right.
Then we're going to go back to the original part, and then in step 6 we'll go to part 1, which was the transposed part. Before we play this song, I'm going to use another great feature of the MMT-8, which is the track muting feature. What this enables us to do is each part of the song, each step of the song, will remember which tracks are on or off. This is great because now what we can do is have basically automated muting within a song. I can go through, for example, we'll go back to the first step and have it play part 0, have it just play the bass line, which is on track 2. I did that by turning track 1 and track 3 off. And tracks 4 through 8, since they're empty, it doesn't matter that we've left those on.
Okay.
We can go to step 2 of the song and select to have tracks 1 and 2 on. We'll play the bass and the keyboard part and leave the horns off. Then step 3, we'll leave all 3 tracks on. Step 4 is going to be the B section that we recorded. Then step 5, we're going to go back to the original verse section, so to speak, part 0. Then step 6, we're going to go to part 1, which was the same as part 0, but transposed up a whole step. And that's part 7 is empty. Step 7 is empty of the song. So now that's the end of the song. But since loop is on, we're going to hear the song repeat when we get to that point.
After the 6th part, after the 6th step.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now let's check it out. Let's see what we got. Display shows us song 0, step 1, part 0, beat 7, and just the bass is on. We just saw this track turn on. It's like automated track muting on an automated mixer. Now we see track 3 turn on. The horns come in. Now we're going to go to part 2, the B section, back to part 0 with all the tracks on. Now we go to the modulation. And move back to the beginning.
Oh, boy, that's great.
So you can see it's really simple to create a whole song and do the arrangement of the song as you go. We could have the verse, what we did there was just by having a single verse, so to speak, we created an introduction by just having it be the bass and then bringing in the keyboards and so on. And we didn't have to play all these things through for the entire song. We just worked at it in sections, and it was very easy to piece it together.
So in a sense, it's like an automated mix.
Exactly, and it's more than an automated mix. It's an automated arrangement when you think about it, because you can now arrange your song without having to splicing tape or anything like that. You decide you want an extra verse, you want an extra chorus. It's real easy to just put them into the song, which is done with more song editing functions. Well, by going back into edit, we can now step through, and let's say we wanted, for example, after the B section, we wanted to go right to the transposed one, which means we want to skip step 5, part 0. We could erase that step by holding erase and hit record. Now we moved what was step 6, part 1, into step 5. We got rid of that one step. If we wanted to put it back in, we could insert a step using the copy function. This is a dual function button. When we're in song edit, copy will insert. When we could insert into step 5, part 0, and hit record. Now we just put it right back in where it was. So now if we want to hear that change we just made, instead of playing it all the way through, let's use the fast forward button and watch the display, and let's just go all the way up to step 4, which we can see in the display. And let's start the song there by hitting the stop continue button. That's the B section. So now we're going to be able to hear that we go right to the modulated section next. Now we got the transpose up section. So that brings us to another feature that we have, and that is that we can use the rewind and fast forward buttons while a song or part is playing as well. We can see the display change, and we can let go at any point. We can basically shuttling like on a tape recorder. If we wanted to start at the beginning of step 4, for example, we can go up to the beginning of step 4 and then let go, and we're starting right there. Or back it up a little bit. Just like that. Just like working a tape recorder.
Because of song position pointer, MIDI song position pointer, the drum machine is following right along.
Exactly. So we don't have to worry about at what beat we happen to come in. The drum machine is just going to jump in exactly in time. It all synchronizes automatically. You don't have to do anything or worry about it at all. So that's song editing and song creation. One more function that we have in song is programmable tempo. And we set that up by just selecting a tempo that we want while we're in song mode, in this case 80 beats per minute, and then pressing record. And it says in the display song tempo saved. So now, from now on, it's going to remember that song 0 has a tempo of 80.
Okay.
And we can have a different tempo for each song. So if you're using this live, every time you call up a song, it's going to have the tempo already programmed into it. You don't have to worry about it. It's really useful. Now let's go back into part mode, and let's talk about some more detailed things that we can do to this data that we've recorded in here. Both the copy and erase functions are really much more powerful than their names imply. Obviously, you can just erase a track or erase a part, and copy tracks and parts. But they have many other functions that are located in the page up and page down buttons. This allows you access to a lot of deeper level functions when you want to get into more sophisticated things. For example, here we have our basic part as we had it. Let's say we wanted to erase just the sustain pedal from part 1, or track 1, which was the piano part. We could hold erase. First we see all the basic functions we have. If we wanted to erase the whole part, we could just hit record and do it, and it would erase all the tracks. We could erase an entire track by just selecting the track.
Which would be just the keyboard track.
Yes, or any combination of tracks.
Okay.
Or we can go through a number of combinations with the page up and page down button, such as erase only notes. Well, this does, just like its name implies, erases only notes but leaves any other MIDI information that might be in there, like sustain pedal, pitch bend, any MIDI controllers and things like that. We can erase just pitch bend, if there was pitch bend on this track. We can erase aftertouch, erase controllers, erase program changes, erase system exclusive MIDI commands, or we can erase information specifically on any of the 16 MIDI channels. So now let's go back to erase controllers, because the sustain pedal is a controller, and I'll hit record. And now, play this back. Let's mute the other tracks. You'll hear in this, it's not sustaining over anymore because we just erased the sustain pedal. We can do that independently on any track. Now, let's say we wanted that sustain pedal back. Let's use a fancy feature of copy to get it back. We know we've got in part 1 the same part, but transposed up a whole step. But it has sustain pedal exactly where we need it. So now let's use copy. Let's copy from part 1 to part 0 and select just track 1.
So it'll take all the keyboard information from that transposed part, put it back on the keyboard information on the original part.
Right. Now if we did this, what would happen is we'd erase what was on track 1 in part 0 and put this on top of it. But now it's still going to be transposed up a whole step. Now we could afterwards transpose it again, But just to show how sophisticated some of these copy functions are and how many choices you have in ways that you can do things, instead, let's copy from part 1, track 1, to part 0, track 4, which is an empty track. And while we're at it, let's go through the page up and page down functions, like in Erase. We could copy only notes, copy pitch bend, copy aftertouch, copy controllers.
Which is what we erased earlier.
Now we're copying the sustain pedal from track 1 of part 1 to track 4 of part 0, which is an empty track.
So in other words, the track that is solid on the LED is going to the track that is blinking.
Exactly. And in the part number that's shown in the display.
Okay. Little complicated in understanding, but it is all there to be visually seen.
Exactly. Now we hit record, and we've done that copy. Now if we go back to part 0, in track 4, we have the sustain pedal information.
Okay.
If I don't have track 4 on, we don't have any sustain during that part. If I turn track 4 on, now it's sustaining. The sustain pedal is actually on a separate track from the other track. We could have done that originally had we not erased the sustain pedal from track 1. We could have copied the sustain pedal first to a new track and then erased the sustain pedal from track 1 and then edited the sustain pedal by itself or anything like that. And now if we wanted to combine them back together, we can use another great function, which is the merge function, which allows us to take any two tracks and combine them onto one track.
So that you can open track 4 back up since it has such minor information. It's elemental and important information for the track, but we'd certainly like to put new musical information on track.
Exactly. There's no sense in having a track that just has sustain pedal on it.
Okay.
But in addition, merge can be used like bouncing tracks on a tape recorder, except you're not going to lose quality like on a tape recorder because you can merge information from multiple tracks, even if they're on different MIDI channels.
Right.
In fact, if we wanted to, we could take what we've just created, everything we've done so far, and we could merge. Well, first let's copy our basic piano track to track 8, which we know is a free track.
Within the same part.
Within the same part.
Okay.
Now let's merge track 2 into track 8. I held merge, selected 2, and the destination track is flashing. Hit record. Let's merge track 3 into track 8. And let's merge track 4 into track 8.
Which was the pedal information.
Exactly. Now I'm going to turn off all the other tracks. We'll see on track 8, we've got our whole song, our whole pattern all on one track. We turn that off, and that's it. Or we've got
the
individual instruments here, which we could now erase if we wanted to free up the tracks. We've only used one track, and we've got all these tracks could be empty.
And they're all on their own MIDI channel.
Exactly.
Okay.
And unlike some sequencers that have some ability of merging tracks, we have the capability of unmerging. Since each track that we did before was each on its own MIDI channel, we could always copy from this track to an empty track and select just a specific MIDI channel to extract out that information.
Okay.
So we're never stuck. We're never locked in that once we've merged the stuff together, if we wanted to edit the bass part, we can't because it's stuck, mixed in with everything else. Like when you bounce on a tape recorder and you can no longer get back that track that you worked so hard on.
So in other words, to save tracks, to have more tracks for musical information to lay down, we collapse all these tracks, in this case it was 4 tracks, over to track 8, then start adding other musical parts, collapse them to track 7, track 6, and on and on. But as long as we kept a few tracks open over here, we could always selectively call out the MIDI channel's information, which would be that part, work on that part, and put it back in.
Right. If we decided at this point we wanted to change a couple notes on the piano, we could still do that by just copying it out.
Great.
And editing it at that point. Let's go through the process of unmerging what we just did. What I can do is hold erase, and let's erase all the tracks that we did before, tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4, and leave track 8 alone. And we hit record to perform the erase.
Okay, let's check that.
Now if we listen, we hear we've got that on track 8.
There's nothing.
Tracks 1 through 7 are empty. So now let's say we want to do something about the piano. For example, that one loud note that sticks out in the piano, we might want to edit that. So we're going to copy from track 8 into track 1, and I just want to copy MIDI channel 2.
Because
MIDI
that's
channel
where the
2
piano is.
where the piano is. We hit record. Now if we turn off track 8, we can turn off all these. We hear we've got piano on track 1. We just took it right out of track 8. It wasn't stuck there. Track 8 still has the piano and everything else. So to avoid having two pianos, let's erase on track 8, let's erase MIDI channel 2.
Okay.
Now on track 8, we got the bass and the horns, and track 1 has the piano. Now there's one note in this pattern as we go along that really kind of sticks out. It's really too loud.
I kind of like it, but you're going to change it.
Well, let's change it just to show that we can. Now what we're going to want to do is go into part edit. This is really where things get powerful in terms of editing individual events in the MIDI information of each track. We just hit edit, and we're on track 1. And first thing we want to do is let's find that note. Well, what we can do is while we're in track edit, we can hit play. And we can actually see the information go by in the display. Okay, we heard it there. Now, in addition to being able to hear it, I can step through it like so. So here we have the note that we want to change, and we can see in the display all the information regarding this note, which we'll go over now. First we have the beat that it occurs, which is beat 8. The subbeat that it occurs, which is 24. That's 24/96ths of a beat, which is the first 16th note after beat 8. Then we have the actual note, which is A# 2. Then we have the velocity, which is 126, which is why it was so loud, because it was a loud velocity. It's almost maximum velocity.
That's on MIDI velocity levels from 0 to 126.
Exactly. Actually, it goes to 127 is the maximum, so we're almost at maximum velocity. Then the duration is on the second line. It's 0 beats and 69 subbeats, so it's a little more. It's about 2/3 of a beat long in terms of duration. And then we have the MIDI channel that it's on. It's channel 2, which is what the piano is on. Now we can use the page up and page down buttons to move the cursor to any of these events, these parameters, and select which one we want to change. In this case, velocity. Let's type in 80 as the velocity for this note. Now we can hit play, and we'll hear that that note won't stick out anymore. We'll change the velocity. We can do a number of things in step edit. We could take that same note that we just edited and change the pitch. It was an A# 2. Let's move it up to an A# 4. Let's move it up 2 octaves, for example. And let's put the velocity back up at 126 just so we can really hear it. Okay. It'll stick out. There's that note. So we've got complete flexibility. We can select any particular note that we want that's in the data. Let's go back to that one, 824, and go back to the original note that it was, which was A# 2, by selecting the note. And let's put the velocity back to 80.
Plus you could increment, decrement velocity like that using the plus-minus buttons.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we've got control over all the information. And we can even control controller information, pitch bend information. We could even edit system-exclusive information directly if you wanted to. And if we step through, we'll even see that there's, for example, on beat 8 and the 81st subbeat, we've got controller 64, which is sustain pedal, and it's set to 0, which is off. That's where I released the sustain pedal the last time. We can even edit that information as well. So we can do virtually anything we want in single-step edit mode on any track, and correct mistakes, change velocities, change MIDI channels. We can insert notes if we wanted to add additional notes. That's done by using the copy button while in part edit. We can insert a note, or using the page up and page down buttons, we can insert a pitch bend, aftertouch, a controller, a program change. Any of those things can be inserted at any specific beat.
So the copy button has a dual function then?
Right. Just like in song edit, copy was used to insert steps into a song.
Right.
In part edit, copy is used to insert any event you want into a particular track that could then be edited. You could even create a part from scratch just by inserting notes and editing the notes to whatever value you want. Finally, in the MMT-8, we've got 4 more functions that are over on the right side that we haven't discussed yet. Beneath the loop and MIDI echo, we have the MIDI filter. This enables you to select what MIDI information you're going to allow into the MMT-8. For example, it says record MIDI notes, This can be turned on or off with the plus or minus button.
Okay.
This decides whether or not it will accept MIDI note information, which most of the time you would leave on. Next, with the page up button, we have record MIDI pitch bend on or off. If you wanted it to ignore the pitch bend wheels while you're recording, you could turn that off. Then there's aftertouch, which can be turned on or off. This is useful to leave off on many synthesizers because they're constantly sending out aftertouch information that you might not want to have in your track, and only turn that on when you really need it.
Because they chew up memory.
They chew up memory, and they can be occurring all the time. If you forgot and left this on, it's no problem to erase just the aftertouch from a track, from what we showed earlier, so it's not a problem, but you can select that here. Then we can decide whether we want to record MIDI controllers, record program changes, and record system exclusive. In addition to that, we can select, if we want, what MIDI channel we're going to record on. Normally it's set to record on all channels, which means one single track can record all 16 MIDI channels at one time.
Mm-hmm.
This is especially useful for people who might use a keyboard with split points, where you have two MIDI channels at the same time, or someone using a MIDI guitar synthesizer. They've got each string on a separate MIDI channel.
Right.
We can record onto one track all 6 MIDI channels and keep them all independent, all at the same time. Or if we wanted to, we could select just one specific channel to record on. This is useful if, for example, the drum machine was controlling a sampler to play a particular sample along with a snare drum, and it was sending out a MIDI a MIDI note to the sampler, and it was also had the clock going to the MMT-8. You wouldn't want the MMT-8 to record this drum event that's occurring all the time. So whatever MIDI channel that was on, you would record on some other MIDI channel instead, since you can always edit what MIDI channel it's going to play back on after the fact.
I understand.
But normally, these are more specific functions for a specific application, because basically all the tools are there to do just about anything you'd want to do. You just determine what you need based on what situation you're in. Then below MIDI filter, we have the clock button. This is very similar to the clock functions in the MIDI utility pages of the HR-16. First, we can select a clock source. Again, we have MIDI and internal only, and tape sync in. These function identical to the HR-16. By hitting the page up button, we get to the next function, which is MIDI clock out enable on or off. If I turn that off right now and hit play, we hear the music and we don't hear the drums playing.
Right, because it's clock going.
Not sending out MIDI clock. We go back to clock and turn it on, the drums come right in. So it's an easy way of, if we didn't want to hear the drums, of stopping them without having to unplug MIDI or anything like that. Then we have auto start enable, which can be turned on or off, just like the HR-16. If we wanted it to start immediately when tape sync occurred or MIDI, that's what that function is used for. Below clock, we have the click pages. Click is where we can select what the click or metronome value will be rhythmically. Now, so far it's been set to quarter notes, and the click comes out of the speaker that's built into the MMT-8, and there's also a jack on the back if you wanted to record your click on tape or send it to an amplifier or headphones. So first thing we can do is set the click value to any rhythmic value we want. We had it on quarter notes. The next page determines whether the record click will be on or off. If we don't want to hear a click, in this example we could have left the click off since we've got the drums keeping rhythm for us.
So then you wouldn't hear the internal speaker on the sequencer.
Exactly.
On the MIDI recorder.
And there would also be no information coming out the click output. It turns the click off. The next page is play click on or off. You might want to turn on your click while you're playing if you're recording a sequence onto tape, recording some synths on tape, and you want to record the click along with it. The final function in the click functions is the countdown, which allows you to select the number of beats of click you want before you start recording, when you're recording a track. We had it set to 4 beats so that when we pressed record and play, it gave us 4 beats before we had to start playing.
Right.
But we can set it to any value that we'd want. You can set it to 0 if you were clocking from some other source and didn't want to have a countdown. The final button in this row is the tempo button, which quite obviously allows us to select whatever tempo we want in part or song mode.
And you can do that while it's actually playing.
That's right. We can speed up or slow down with the arrow buttons, or enter a value directly in
with the keypad.
Notice the drum machine automatically stayed in sync regardless of the tempo because it's following the MIDI clock information. Finally, we have the name button, which is over in the left side, right in the middle. This allows us to name parts or songs to any name that we want. When we hold down the name button, we see a cursor in the display, and using the page up and page down buttons, we can move it anywhere we want in the display. And then we can change the name of the display just by scrolling through characters.
Where the cursor is.
Exactly.
Okay.
And just by holding it down, we can change each digit to any character we want. If we wanted to call this song, we just go like this. Now let's put in some spaces real quick, and this will just say song name for now. Once you've selected the characters that you want in a particular name, to store the name with the part, you need to hit record, and it'll say new part name stored. So now anytime we select this part, it's going to come up song name.
Or whatever name I want.
Or whatever name you want. That's useful, you know, if you're doing, in a studio situation or a songwriting situation, you'd probably want to name each part. This is verse 1, verse 2, chorus, and so on. And you probably want to name your songs with the name of the song. And in a live performance situation, you'll be able to see what the names are right in the display.
Exactly.